conservative voter and the potential conservative voter. One of them really gives a shit about school curriculum. Fuck, whatever. We kind of think it's all claptrap anyway.
Well,
so it is
the kids are all grown up.
Yeah, it's a perfect way to complete. Like if I want to do something that's really going to alienate my base potentially, if the opposition starts talking about it, I got to find a way to make sure the opposition doesn't even know it's fucking happening. So yeah, fuck with education, because that will just get the NDP wrapped right around the axle. They can talk about it all they want. It's not going to affect my base. Yeah. It'll get their base fucking boiling, but it won't affect mine at all. And then no one's talking about administrative punishments, which to me is like just this fucking side of
it was
just this fucking side of Francisco Franco.
It was freaking Kafkaesque.
Oh,
it was brutal.
Oh, damn! It was
like something out of Brazil, right?
Can you do
it? It was diabolical.
How does demerits play into it? It seems to me that if you can't prove who was driving the car, like now you have to go back to enforcing demerits.
No, you got nothing.
Because it didn't apply to. Well, I mean, like
photo
radar tickets fell under it, but photo radar tickets they didn't really fundamentally change what happened with photo radar tickets. But the other significant change was that the officer's notes were considered sworn testimony.
Yeah.
So the officer didn't have to show up for court anymore.
Yep.
So if you showed up,
in other words, you had to prove your innocence.
Yeah, it was literally guilty till proven innocent.
They still have to use police officers.
Nope. By law enforcement, any kind of peace officer, any kind of authorized provincial official, and it wasn't just speeding.
But they have to be pulling you over. It has to be a demerit offense.
No, or it wasn't just speeding. Anything. You have, this tree is growing too close to your house. Here's a ticket.
Yeah. So traffic was the second phase, and then the third phase was any offense, provincial offense that would result in a fine.
Yeah.
And then same deal.
It just made it impossible for you to defend yourself.
Yeah, it was
impossible. That you could get a ticket for literally anything at any time. No due process.
See, this to me is where libertarian meets left.
Mm-hmm. Or where we find common ground.
Because there are a lot of people for whom it's just a matter of money, right? But Joe Schmo, who's making minimum wage, he gets in this situation, he's fucked.
He's fucked. Yeah, and this is an act that I don't think came out of the government, like out of the politicians. I think this one came from the bureaucracy.
I think this one came out of the finance of the bean counters.
Yeah.
Because our budgets were in crisis.
Yeah.
So this is a way we can fleece.
Are you saying it got stopped at speeding or drunk driving?
It got stopped at drunk driving. So it's still in place for impaired driving, which is
like seizure of the car.
Seizure of the car and all that stuff.
What stopped it? A court challenge?
No, there was a lot of... It hit the news. It did manage to make the news. And there was a lot of hue and cry.
Yeah.
Like right as it... Because it hit the news basically when phase 2 was supposed to be implemented.
Yeah.
Or like next week,
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I think everybody was like, what the actual hell?
And I know that it hit...
Because the news was reasonably good
on it.
New
media, like Runkle of the Bailey.
Well, Runkle of the Bailey had it like 2 years ago, but when they first
put
passed
some light on it. Yeah.
When they first passed it,
I mean that's how I found out about it, not through conventional media.
Yeah.
And what I did see in legacy media really didn't bring up any of the issues that I was concerned about.
No.
Like it was new media.
And the impaired driving thing, because I mean, impaired driving can result in a custodial sentence, and like how does that work, right? Because I understand, like, okay, we implement this. Basically, like, now all these fines are still innocent until proven guilty, like the foundation of the common law or the criminal law.
Drunk driving is a great vehicle for this because
nobody likes drunk driver.
Yeah, how do you defend drunk driving?
Well, and that's what Runkle said, right? Like the first implementation is impaired driving because who's going to defend impaired drivers?
Exactly. It's like exactly. If you're going to take away. If you're going to take away someone's, constitutional rights, start with, say, child molesters.
We're going to implement summary executions in Canada, and we're going to start with pedophiles.
Right. Exactly. Because who's going to defend a pedophile?
Right.
And then we just expand it to anyone we want to kill.
It's the camel's nose into the tent, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, gun control, buddy. Can you give me a rough summary of your position? Because I may have to, like, if you're not really hard on it,
no,
I'm prepared to try and represent the disarmament side. I'm willing to give it a shot. Don't know how good it'll be because I don't really believe it.
Again, I've got a 10,000 foot view of this, right? As I've said before, I don't think Canada needs gun control the way that the U.S. needs gun control. The U.S. is basically the argument. Now, I know you're coming at it from a different direction because, but I essentially agree with you. You don't need gun control in this. In a lot of ways, in Canada, it really becomes a social question, right? Do we or do we not take the view that the Australians did after the Tasmania shootings? Australia as a society said, oh well, fuck it, I guess, it's worth it to us as a society to ban weapons, to ban guns.
To ban firearms,
To prevent things like this from happening, right? That was a values judgment made by the society.
Yeah. And then the bad faith argument, which I hear a lot lately, is, they banned semi-automatic firearms, which they didn't ban all semi-automatic firearms. They just banned semi-automatic rifles and pump-action rifles.
Sure.
And then, but they haven't had a mass shooting since. Well, that's correlation, not causation.
Yes.
Right?
And
it could just be because Australia didn't have a lot of gun crime prior.
Exactly.
And hasn't had a lot of gun crime after.
If we look at gun crime
right
in Australia from 1890 to 2022,
right,
it's not even a blip.
And the worst, and again,
like you can determine no difference.
Yeah.
Post and prior to Australia's gun ban, there's no difference.
Yeah. Well, and the worst school shooting, which was the Virginia Tech shooting, was committed with semi-automatic handguns, which are still legal in Australia.
Yeah.
Right? Basically under very similar rules to what we have here prior to the freeze. Well, even post-freeze.
Sure.
But people still could shoot semi-automatic handguns in competition and target shooting on there.
Yeah. Nor has it stopped mass murder events. So they haven't had a mass shooting. How about mass murder?
Yeah. And then Binns once time said to me, he says, if you look at, in the United States, this is prior to COVID, because that number went up about 2,000 people a day, but prior to COVID, he's like, in the United States, about 7,000 people died from all causes every day.
Yeah.
He's like, you know what the number is in Canada? And I said, about 700. He's like, yep.
Yeah, because
we're at 10.
30 million to 300 million. Yeah.
So if you start, when you, like you say, take the 10,000 foot view and look at mortality, all causes.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And then things start like...
All right. Now, it'd be interesting to see what that breakdown is.
Yeah.
Right? Because obviously, because their gun deaths are 10 times per capita what ours are. That's at least when I first saw the stats back in the 80s, that's what it was. Per capita, they had 10 times as many gun deaths as we did. Handgun deaths.
Like, it's 10 times more per 100 people.
Well, like their murder rate is,
yeah.
Their murder rate is way higher than ours,
yes,
right? Like, because in Canada we have like 700 people a year.
So it'd be interesting to find out what.
And they have like 15 or 20,000 murder
yeah.
rate.
Like what's making up for that discrepancy?
Yeah.
Because there's
like
discrepancy in.
Thomas Sowell has a great article about this where he compares London and New York. That for the last 200 years, London and New York have been roughly the same size and the same population.
Mm-hmm.
New York has had gun control legislation on the books 70 years longer than London did.
Right.
And New York's murder rate has always been something like 4 times higher than London's murder rate throughout, like going back the last 300 years.
Yeah, until last 2 years ago.
And there's like gun control. Like again, New York had like London had no gun control prior to like 1950.
Yeah,
like none. You could buy a Vickers gun if you wanted to in the UK. You could.
Yeah.
There was absolutely almost no gun control.
There was a great article about like 15 years ago came out, a guy talking about the history of gun control in like the common law nations. And and the UK specifically was like there was no gun control before the 50s.
Yeah.
Right? It was legal to buy machine guns in Canada until 1978.
Yeah. And then, but New York's murder rate was still 4 times, has always been consistently 4 times higher than that of London. That there's been various, like, vast differences between them through most of their history.
Yeah.
In terms of gun control.
And then about 2 years ago, London passed New York.
Yeah. It's only in the very recent history that their gun control has been very similar.
Yeah.
But that murder rate is consistently 4 times higher.
But no, London's murder rate passed New York's.
Oh yeah.
So that was a big deal.
So,
but only when London had a complete gun prohibition.
Without digging down into it right now, that to me just reinforces the notion that this is an American problem.
Or a societal problem.
It's a cultural thing, but yeah.
That there's no firm correlation in that regard between the number of firearms in a society and the amount of gun violence.
Well, because American gun deaths, there's somewhere at 40,000 in the last couple of years per year, gun deaths.
Yeah.
And roughly 60% of those are suicides.
Suicides, that's right.
Yeah. So America's suicide rate is got to be higher per capita than comparable nations because they have a more effective means of...
It's not.
I think it is.
It is not. And in fact, it is lower. Japan has the highest suicide rate.
You're right. But
I think the United States is not even in the
top. But if you factor out suicides, the gun deaths that are by suicide per capita compared to Canada, that might make for an interesting comparison.
The thing is an effective method of suicide, right? Like you know, it's not hard to commit suicide with a gun, you know, and it usually works. But it is hard with a rope. Like, I mean, like if you set it up properly with a rope, you might be able to call it off.
Usually,
but yeah,
when men set out to commit suicide, they usually succeed.
Yeah, and women don't,
because women usually use more intervening methods.
Yeah. Now we're getting off topic.
But
But there is definitely a difference. But again, overwhelmingly, those firearm suicides are male.
Yeah.
Overwhelmingly,
suicide is male.
This is true.
Yeah. Right. Like it's true.
So I mean, that becomes a different social problem whatsoever.
Yes.
Kind of an unrelated social problem. Now we're talking murders.
Yeah.
Mostly accidental deaths to a certain extent. My questions would be statistically, per capita, how many guns are owned in the States versus Canada? As the comparison,
I would say a lot more.
Per capita, how many gun owners are there? Because there's going to be,
I would say probably a lot more.
Actually, I don't know. In gun ownership, I don't know that the per capita. There is a difference, but I don't know that it's that big per capita. The number of guns per capita is higher. There's now the numbers that have been bandied around lately is there's over 400 million firearms, which is like 1.1 firearms for every person in the country.
The average citizen.
Is there a way to account for illegally or unregistered owned weapons?
At the best in estimate, because
it's basically when it comes down to it, I've started to agree with the NRA attributed statement that guns don't kill people, people with guns kill people, right? But the problem being that there's a whole lot of people in the U.S. who kill people with guns, right?
But if you take the guns away, are they going to stop killing people?
Well, that becomes the question. That is a very philosophical question.
And a very important question.
One of the issues that kind of emphasized this to me, and this is something that came up, is the NRA's role in all this, and I find that the NRA lost a lot of integrity a couple of years ago. I can't remember the guy's name.
Wayne LaPierre.
The guy who got shot I think it was in Minnesota. The guy who had the concealed carry permit.
That's Fernando Castillo.
Right.
Oh, he was killed by the cops.
And he was shot even though what he was doing was perfectly legal.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
he was just shot at a traffic stop.
You didn't hear sweet fuck all from the NRA about that because he wasn't white.
Hold on.
No.
Hold on. Right? That's bad faith.
If he had been white,
First of all,
NRA would have been all over that.
First of all,
okay? Substantiate that.
No, first I want to push back first. The NRA is not the only gun
rights organization.
firearms rights organization in the United States. The NRA has taken a big hit in the last couple of years because the president of the NRA and the head of the NRA's Institute for Legislative Action has been under investigation for fraud.
Right.
And so the NRA is a very diminished organization from where it was even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
A lot of other organizations, Gun Owners America, Juice for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, and a bunch of other gun organizations were all over that shooting because that was a bad fucking shoot.
That was.
And the cop should have gone to jail. But he didn't. The other thing, there's an interesting note because, like, Philando Castillo, he was, I hope I got the right name there. He was licensed concealed carry.
Yep.
Only 2 states carry or conduct research on offenses committed by concealed carry permit holders, Florida and Texas. Both states are consistent in that they find that concealed carry permit holders are 6 times less likely, as likely to commit an offense as a police officer.
Yes, I have read that.
Which is a very law-abiding demographic.
Yeah, very interesting actually.
So.
Oh yeah, no question. Right?
So the thing is,
obviously, if
this gets into like the warrior cop stuff and the damage that David Grossman's done.
Yeah.
So the cop was scared of the concealed carry permit holder when Philando Castillo told him, I was a concealed carry permit holder. That should actually put the cop at ease.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, okay, great.
Yeah, this guy is the least likely
person
to offend.
Yeah, this is the least likely
ally.
Yeah. This is the least likely traffic stop to go wrong.
Yeah.
So there's a cultural problem there.
Yeah.
Right? And we got to do an episode on policing.
Yeah.
Modern policing. We got to do that one too.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there was a lot of people. The NRA, you can take the NRA, there's a lot of gun owners in the United States who would say, fuck the NRA.
Yeah,
they don't care if they go bankrupt.
Okay.
So
the outcry, there's not a lot of hue and cry.
Why do you say it
significant.
was racist?
Listen to the last name, right?
So that's the only consideration I can possibly
remember.
So if something bad happens to a Latino guy, it's automatically racism?
No, I'm saying that as far as I'm concerned, the gun lobby in the U.S., which in my lifetime is typically represented by the NRA, right, didn't do anything about it. Right?
Philando Castillo's death was a result of systemic or institutional hoplophobia.
Hoplophobia?
Hoplophobia.
Fear of firearms.
Fear of weapons, but yeah. It was a term, hoplophobia was a term coined by Jeff Cooper, who is the man we call the father of the modern technique of handgun shooting. And so.
Anyways, that has stuck with me, and now I've got some more information to kind of think about. But it seems to me that there should have been more hue and cry about that as a society.
In the mainstream, we would have.
Well, there was at the same. You remember there was a. I think her first name was Brianna. There was. Could be. She was shot by stray rounds from police.
No, Breonna Taylor was not shot by stray rounds. She was shot by the SWAT team.
Yeah, but the SWAT team was shooting at somebody else and it went through a wall and hit her or something like that?
Nope.
Okay, they just gunned her down. But yeah, it was a bad shoot.
It was a bad shoot.
Totally bad shoot.
It was a bad warrant. The problem was it was a bad warrant. And her boyfriend, who she was living with, he shot back.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that is the incident.
So he shot back and they shot and they both, I can't remember if the boyfriend died, but she did anyway.
Yeah, she certainly did. And it gathered a lot of attention. Yeah. And rightly so.
Yeah, it did, because there was lies on the affidavit for the warrant and stuff like that.
It stunk to high heaven. Yeah. But at the exact same time, there was a white guy who was killed by the police in very, very similar circumstances, and it never made the news.
No.
At all. And this one journalist was pointing this out to say, look, man, I mean, let's face it, the only reason why Breonna Taylor's case is getting any publicity at all is because she's black. And it happened kind of around George Floyd too. It he points out these other examples where he's saying this police this abuse of not abuse, I'm going to say just piss poor policing, horrible fucking policing, is killing a lot of people. And we're only finding out about this one case because she's black. So we're saying, let's not make this a race issue. This is a police issue.
Well, I think you've got both. And I think when you talk about good faith, bad faith, some people can raise that in bad faith. Some people can raise that in good faith. Other people can take that and go with it in bad faith. And I think a lot of people have been using that to say, it's kind of like the all lives matter, pushback against Black Lives Matter. I think, they're both valid statements, right? A white person who's killed by cops.
I had an example of that, which turned out I didn't need, but I got a great quote on that story for our bad faith thing. Like an article in Slate magazine about using that as an example.
I get the impression, again, this is my impression, and again, it's kind of skewed by what makes the news, what doesn't. And I know there are white people who go through the same thing. I still would not be surprised to find that the statistics are that per capita, it happens to black people more than it happens to white people. And
I have heard, or I've seen admittedly, right-wing media say something like Daily Wire or Daily Caller, but when those sources say that overwhelmingly the statistics say that is not the case, that black people are not disproportionately shot by unarmed black people are not disproportionately shot by police.
Well,
if anything, white people are disproportionately shot. I think unarmed white people are disproportionately shot by police.
I think this was pre George Floyd, and I think it was even pre this. I remember seeing video of, I think it was a big fat black guy, and I think it was in Florida, and the footage was taken from a distance, but he was told by a cop to just put his hands behind his back and lie down, or vice versa, right? And then he got shot while he was lying down, right? And I'm just looking at this, at this point when I'm seeing this is why I say the U.S. is a sick society, right? It's gone beyond an intellectual debate about whether it's as many whites as blacks or anything like that. That shouldn't fucking happen.
It shouldn't, no.
Right? And when we start talking about
Philando. I thought it was Fernando.
No, Philando.
We start talking about the U.S., the land of the free. We talk about how it's all about civil liberties and stuff like that. The fact that they're the most incarcerated society per capita in the world is a huge indictment of this sickness. Well, right? And that ties into gun control and gun violence issues.
Before we can talk about incarceration,
maybe we got to do policing right after we do gun control.
Maybe yes,
these are all tied together, right?
Do what?
Policing.
Right after we do gun control.
The state of
it's not just policing. Policing's the enforcement. Sure. We're also talking about law and order, right?
Well, if we say that the United States is the most incarcerated society in the world, do they commit more crimes per capita than most societies in the world?
They got more.
Or at least the G20.
They got more people in prison.
Sure. But then we got to ask, well, why? Because they tend to commit more crimes than other states in the G20? Are they a more or less law-abiding society than, say, Denmark, Belgium, Japan?
Short answer without anything to back it up. I'd say that it seems to me obvious that the answer to that is yes.
Yeah, because if we're going to say, well, these guys have a lot of people in jail.
Yes.
The first question I ask is, well, did they commit crimes? Are they unjustly incarcerated? Or are they justly
incarcerated? I think some of them are. But then, and again, there are rabbit holes we can go down here. We can compare use the obvious example of that, swimming star out of California, rapist who got lenient treatment versus, a woman who got thrown in jail because she lied on a form to get her black kid into a different school, right? And a judge threw her in jail, right? It's all this social sickness. How much of this is tied into the war on drugs, specifically marijuana? Like if you were to legalize
it's a big concern,
marijuana,
right? Yeah.
there's no question that probably, I'm going to say like a quarter to a third of their incarceration rates would go down.
It's a big chunk. I don't know if it's that big, but it's a big chunk.
I don't know.
You know, because there's possession, there's distribution, and then there's the violence that goes with it.
Yeah, the problem is, so when you start releasing people for marijuana crimes, you know, so you can release people who have simple possession or even possession with intent. But as soon as there is a gun crime in there or some other violent crime that's
what
tied
percentage
to it,
of prison sentences were possession charges for marijuana?
But moving forward from that point, once you legalize it,
but
or decriminalize it, now you don't have the cartels. Now you don't have anywhere near the violence. At least ideally. Right?
Did legalization in Canada take the criminal element out of marijuana?
No, because it's taxed too high.
Did not. Exactly.
I don't know. I have
black
no
market
idea.
has not lost any market share at all.
Well, they have to have lost some market share because now there's a legal method, but
but
not as much as they should.
Because they can undercut the legal.
Yeah, because they can undercut it big. But there's all these legal dispensaries out there who are doing. So they took part of their market.
I don't know.
Well, and then they also got people who weren't buying because it was legal, but now buying art because it is.
And I've got my strong suspicion is a lot of like a sizable percentage of the inventory in the legal dispensaries comes from the black market.
It could.
I mean, how do you tell? When you got a pot plant, how do you know whether it's legal or illegal?
Oh, it's like tobacco, right? It's like, because
it's the same, right?
Because Red McCauley was telling me about like the hoops they're having to jump through because he was invested in one. Yeah. About the hoops they had to go through. Like, you have to. There's like a 4 or 5 stage permitting process, right? Like get the space, essentially build the entire grow up, then get it in. One you actually have to get the space, then get the security system in, then get the security system inspected, so you get the permit to build the grow up, build the grow up, get the grow up inspected, so you get the permit to grow your first test crop.
Yep.
Grow the test crop, get the test crop inspected, so you get the permit to grow for consumption and sale.
And it's expensive as hell.
Yeah.
So you know what? It's kind of important for me to be able to sell black market shit.
Absolutely.
Because I need to pad my fucking margins.
Yeah.
If all I could sell was like, there's limits. Like, I cannot overcharge over the black market by more than a few percent.
No.
Or no one's going to buy my shit.
Yeah.
So if my cost per ounce is $100,
so my question,
and all I can sell for is 104, that's razor margin. So if I sell a bunch of shit that I bought at $20 an ounce, then I can sell that as legal. I got an $80 profit margin. That'll keep me going, you know, with this massively inefficient legal.
So the question becomes, what's the market for counterfeit tax stamps and seals and product seals, right?
I bet you it's there. But anyway,
I need to get going.
All right.
I've got a follow-up fight. I have yet to try an innocent gun, but I've had it recommended to me.
I thought that's what you were drinking.
This is Italian beer. It's Birra Moretti.
By looking at the label. And I was going to ask you if you liked it. It's also the same shape of bottle.
Yeah. I've had innocent. There's a bunch of different innocent guns, right?
Yeah, because
they get aged in different barrels. You get brandy barrels and whiskey barrel innocent gun. And
you like it?
It's a little too hoppy for me. I'm very much a light beer guy. Easy to drink.
I'm finding it. Everyone's racing to the top of the hoppiness scale these days. It's like every time you go for an IPA, it's hoppier than the last one.
Yeah, hoppy and bitter.
Yeah,
it's not for me.
I'm looking for a good smooth bitter. That's the best beer I've ever had. Is a smooth bitter. Bottled in Edmonton, you can get Victoria bitter out of Australia. It's amazing. Smoothest thing I've ever drunk, except for Bombardier bitter in Britain, which they've stopped producing for some fucking reason. Again, very smooth, but not hoppy, right?
They did get rid of all their strategic bombers, so maybe that's why.
Maybe. Even when I drank, I never liked beer. It always was really bitter and soapy taste.
It's something I came into late in life, but I definitely am a lighter beer guy. Like,
well, especially in the summer, you can't drink anything but.
Coors Light has got a bit of a sweetness to it that I like, but
is there a difference between Coors Light here and in America?
I don't know. I've never had it in the States.
I would think there would.
Almost undoubtedly.
There's probably stronger here.
Yeah, I would think.
Well, it's stronger, but it's also the water that's used.
Well,
it's
that's
like
true too.
back in the 80s, before we had a big explosion of pint beers and craft beers. The only thing you could get was Foster's out of Australia. Once they got licensed here, didn't taste the same.
No.
American beers, when you got them up here,
My understanding is Australians don't even drink Foster's. They can't stand the shit.
Yeah,
that's what I've heard.
that was the funny thing.
That's what I've heard. It's
But-
like, for them, it's like Labatt's Blue is for us.
Yeah.
It's something that you drink if you have no other choice.
Yeah.
Even Kokanee, when they licensed it,
I heard that too.
and they started producing on the prairies,
Yeah.
it tasted different than
Wasn't
stuff
the
that used to
same.
come out of the Rockies.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense though. Each plant is going to have its own fingerprint.
Oh yeah, if you eat Hershey's chocolate from
Yeah.
the UK or Germany,
Yeah.
it tastes different than here.
Yeah.
Hell, as a smoker, Marlboro cigarettes, they're everywhere.
Yep.
But they taste different wherever you get
Taste
them.
different wherever you go. Just like,
That's one thing McDonald's has cured.
yes, they've standardized their junk.
When I travel internationally,
Yeah.
I try to have one meal at McDonald's just
Yeah,
to see if it's
just to
different.
find out,
right?
yeah.
We were in Bali. My mom flew my sister and I with her to Bali, and we were on like this van tour, and we were driving along, and we're driving through Denpasar. We're going off to a temple or something, and we're about to come by McDonald's, and the guy's like, "Anybody want to go to McDonald's?" As a joke, right? And I'm like, "Yeah, I would." So we went to the drive.
And everyone gives you the side eye.
Yeah, I was the only one who ordered.
Yeah.
And
And it was the same.
And it was the same. It was. I mean, it came in a plastic cup. The Coke came in a plastic cup, but
Other than that, yeah,
it was the
the
same.
flavor
Just
was-
get
If you're ordering one of our menu items, then
yeah. No, you got to do that, right?
Yeah.
Big Mac with, I think I just got a Big Mac and fries, right?
Yeah.
Like, just to do.
But like I've done that with Indian food.
Yeah.
When I order the same thing here than when I order it in the UK, it
Yeah.
tastes
Oh,
completely different.
absolutely.
Like
Oh,
people, like I was getting some side eye from people, and so I explained to them. I like whenever I travel, I try to go McDonald's to see if it's any different.
Yeah.
in,
There's a method
right?
to this.
There's I'm not just because I want
Yeah.
some McDonald's. I'm just
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
Well, frankly,
because
I
the other thing I like to do is go to, like when you're in some country, go to an ethnic restaurant that is not that country.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right. So
Sure.
what is Indian food like in Taiwan
Italy.
or
Yeah.
Italy?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
We went to we were in Frankfurt. We went to it was supposed to be a Cuban restaurant, and it was
Completely unfamiliar to you.
It was not-
What
it was not
what you
Cuban.
expect.
yeah. It
Yeah,
was weird.
that would be
Like,
interesting.
and they had all kinds of weird stuff. It was like purported to be a Cuban restaurant, but they had pizza on the menu, and their Hawaiian pizza had bananas on it.
Well, that's what I find strange. Here
That's
we can consider ourselves the mosaic, right?
Right.
That's the Canadian mosaic. So we're used to all these different influences because we've got people coming from all parts of the world. When I go to what I consider the old world, Europe, I remember being in Toledo, Spain, and walking along, and there was a Chinese restaurant.
Right.
It was I had to do a bit of a sanity check on that. I said,
Yeah.
well, why would Spanish people have a Chinese restaurant? Which is a stupid question to ask. When you
Right.
take it- if you
Yeah,
take
when you
the
think about it,
slightest
yeah.
step backwards, to
Yeah.
ask,
I know we have Chinese restaurants,
but-
of course, but yeah.
but I had these two misconceptions. One was this is the old world, so they don't do that. We
Yeah.
do it because we're a colonial nation.
Yeah. We're a nation
And-
of immigrants. Blah blah blah.
And the other thing that was going on is I'm in Spain to eat Spanish food.
Yeah.
I'm
How dare you?
I'm not in Spain to eat Chinese food.
eat low-fung
and
Chinese
what does it
food.
matter? Just walk a block and I'll find Spanish food. I mean, so that's the third thing.
It's also different for Spanish food versus like I think Spanish food is more varied than like German food. Like I think when we were there, like we'd been in Germany for Germany or
Yeah.
Switzerland or Austria for like 3 weeks. So we're like, that's enough schnitzel. Let's try something else.
Yeah. How many times can I bread a piece of meat and then cover it with a really heavy sauce?
Yeah.
Like a really heavy cream sauce. There's only so many
many
ways
times,
you
yeah.
can do that.
So you're right. What you said about Indian food in England.
Oh, yeah. Totally
it's
different.
just
Totally different.
it's I almost cry when I eat it. It's because you can get good stuff here, but it's nothing like over there. It's
Yeah, I've especially
It's weird the way Indian food has kind of become the British cuisine,
yeah.
right?
yeah, in a way.
There
it's
there isn't a town that I've been in the UK that does not have at least one Indian restaurant, one
Name-
Chinese restaurant.
Named Gandhis.
What?
They're all named Gandhis.
No, not necessarily.
I think it's legislation. I think you have to have at least one of your Indian restaurants named Gandhis. I think it's it's got to be in the books. Got to be.
In the English Constitution.
Somewhere, yeah. There's some kind of
from 1300
law,
whatever
something like that.
See, that's why I can keep talking about the advancement of human rights.
Thou shalt.
But that's why,
have
like,
a restaurant named
I have
after
zero tolerance for any cultural appropriation arguments living in North America. It's like, because if we don't culturally appropriate North America, we don't have culture. Period.
Yeah.
Right?
What do we got? American cheese. That's it.
American cheese.
That's it.
That's not
Toots,
cheese.
crap
That's fucking scratch
I
singles.
know,
Right?
exactly.
I can't even stand the things.
And that's, but that becomes our defining
Yeah.
cultural moment.
No,
right?
so we've got to pick and choose, right? Because we're, we're immigrant. We're
the whole
melting
concept of cultural appropriation is just so really.
Yeah,
like,
it is. It's
I get it. On the one hand, you got blackface, and that's kind of rude.
Yeah, but that's not appropriation.
Right. Yeah.
But when people like Noel Rothman from Commentary has been out plugging his book about Progressive's War on Fun, and one of his chapters is on food and like fusion cooking, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's people, and he has some examples of like some women who started a taco truck in Portland, and they went to Mexico and learned to make tacos from like Mexican grandmas and stuff like this.
Yeah.
And then took that knowledge and went back to Portland and started a taco truck, and one of the best taco trucks in Portland. It's cultural appropriation.
Right.
But
Because
they went to
they're
Mexico and
not
freaking trained, right?
Quite literally.
Yeah.
But what's wrong with it?
Yeah,
That's
like
what-
to me,
The people
it's
voluntarily
flattery.
trained.
Yeah.
It's flattery,
Right?
It's meant to honor. It's
And
like saying this stuff is so cool.
And then there was another fellow, a Caucasian guy who went, can't remember if he went to India or if he went to Japan, if he was doing Indian food or if he was doing sushi. But he was a Caucasian guy, right? Oh, you can't do that. Cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
But he went and trained.
Yeah, I have definitely heard of North Americans going to Japan to study everything. Yeah, definitely sushi is a big one.
Yeah.
And martial arts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say the obvious one is martial
But even a
arts.
ramen,
So
like
how
you
do
get
we-
culturally appropriate because you're a white guy who owns a ramen restaurant. Like,
Yeah, yeah. But again, cultural appropriation, the concept of cultural appropriation.
So does that mean every time
do we need to do an episode on cultural appropriation?
Oh, yeah, probably.
It just turned into just us mocking.
Yeah, and I don't know how much traction we get.
Americans.
Maybe it'd be a short episode.
A shorter episode.
Yeah, short episode.
Yeah,
And
we all
just talk
agree.
about the most ridiculous examples.
Oh
of
yeah.
people
So
losing
where is it
their
at?
minds.
Again, every time I go to Wholesale Club and buy a flat of Ichiban, am I?
Culturally appropriative? Yeah.
Or is
No, see the problem is not when you buy the Ichiban. It's when you buy the Ichiban and say you like salsa in your Ichiban season or something like that, or you, like can you put sriracha in Ichiban? Sriracha's Vietnamese, right? Yeah.
Well, that's
Or
doubly cultural appropriation. No, but I mean there is single culture appropriation. That's me as a white guy eating Ichiban.
Or is every time the president of Pakistan puts on a three-piece suit, is he guilty of cultural appropriation?
Oh, now. Okay, so there's an episode.
Yeah.
If that's the starting, that's the opening statement of an episode. There we've got an episode.
Every time a guy from Nigeria jumps in his car, turns a key, and drives somewhere, is that cultural appropriation?
Yeah, okay, but now we're talking power politics, historical power politics.
what about how about
cultural appropriation? Is the levying that accusation not quintessential power politics?
is it not cultural appropriation when an African mounts a dishka in the bed of a Toyota?
Yeah,
I think we got bigger problems going on.
Yeah.
it's like that's sriracha on the sushi boys.
Yeah,
right
try
there.
and stop them though.
Try and stop.
Tune in next time, folks, when we actually do get to gun control part 2.
Yeah. Yes. Anyway, I am ready.
Okay.
To begin.
Lance is
gentlemen.
ready.
I will stop this and then restart.
If your only competition is 3 or 4 other Irish regiments at the time, how good are you, right? If you got this guy, you said, man, that guy's fucking brilliant. He's one of the best players. Or, say like the Enniskillen Fusiliers. They're brilliant. They're fucking good. They're not as good as the Argylls. Sure they are. Well, no, they're not. Like,
Prove it.
Yeah, prove it, right? Well, we can't. Because we play these different types. Well, then we'll never know.
Here's the question.
So
Has
then
an
we say,
Irish
fuck it, we
regiment
want to know.
Has an Irish regiment ever won?
No army regiment has ever won since the 1950s.
No army regiment.
No army
Who
regiment
wins?
has ever. Civilian bands.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah. The civilian bands are far and away better than the military bands. They have more time.
Okay.
Army bands are, yeah, they're full-time, but they're not full-time piping and drumming. They're full-time army. For example, in the British Army, your pipes and drums are usually your headquarters company security or your heavy weapons detachments.
Okay.
Where you'll have, say, like, basically it's a platoon, basically. So these guys will be your anti-tank and DSF platoon, generally.
Well,
so these guys are always going away on tow, Milan.
It's annoying. You want to be a tow gunner, you got to learn to play pipes.
HMG. Yeah, exactly. I want to do tow, but I couldn't fucking get the rhythm down on the bagpipes, so I never got the chance.
Yeah, couldn't drum either. So
yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's usually.
You had to join a non.
Yeah, I had to go join a county regiment in England, so I could be a commanding armor.
Yeah.
That's generally what they do, right? So they're going, and they're also away on tour and stuff like that. Yeah. Whereas the civilian bands, okay, you're an electrician, but every waking moment otherwise. And a lot of them now are professional musicians anyway.
Yeah.
In that they'll say work in the business of repairing pipes or fine-tuning pipes for people, or they're teaching full-time, they're recording, especially now where you're able to monetize artistic content in a way that people never could before.
Oh yeah, the stuff you see.
I knew one guy who got a job as a piano tuner in the public schools in Scotland just because it gave him his entire summer off, which was competition season. And then he was always, like, every second weekend he was going off somewhere, either in the UK, continental Europe, or North America, where he's putting on a clinic, where he's a teacher at a high-end clinic kind of thing. So an exceptional amount of travel.
Continental Europe.
Oh yes.
Really?
Yeah.
I know.
Go figure.
I know that the Basque have pipes of some sort.
There's a pipe band, a civilian pipe band in Holland.
Really?
Apeldoorn. The 48th Highlanders of Apeldoorn. The 48th of Canada liberated Apeldoorn.
Mm-hmm.
So this civvy pipe band copies everything that the 48th Highlanders in Toronto do.
Well,
the exact uniform, if the 48th changes their mode of dress, in Apeldoorn, the civvy pipe band changes its mode of dress.
Wow.
The dedication of the Dutch to.
But there's German pipe bands where they wear the kilts and the whole 9 yards and.
Oh wow!
But it would look weird with lederhosen, so you know.
Yeah, exactly.
That's more of an affectation.
Tartan lederhosen, that'd be funny.
Right? It's a bunch of guys who are like, oh, pipes, cool, but there's nothing cultural going on.
No, they just like the music. But you get that here, right? Like I've known guys who play in pipe bands here who, there was a New Brunswick guy, his name was Delord LeBlanc. He didn't have a drop of Scottish background in him.
Yeah.
He just really liked the music. And so he was a great side drummer. He was fantastic. He just loved the music.
Apparently we've got some Ulster Protestant Irish clans. Going back to Clan Henderson.
Could be, yeah.
So I've never looked at our target.
There's an Orange Hall in Edmonton.
Oh yeah, I know that. But actually Orangemen,
I don't think they're active. At least not in the sense of what an Orange Hall would be of like Protestant fundamentalism.
Oh yeah, like not the way it still is in Ulster, not the same way it was 100 years ago here.
Yeah,
back then that bigotry still existed.
It's start marching season.
Or not, and not just bigotry, but
marching season.
Sectarianism.
Yeah.
Marching season in Edmonton.
Yeah, marching season in Edmonton is like.
Well, I think that was the weird thing. Realizing that
just come out and don't want to get away, or
realizing that there's an Orange Hall in Edmonton, and just knowing what that means in back in the old country, but just not seeing that shit here. I remember, what book was it I was reading? I think it was I was reading about Medak. and they were saying that you'd have Croats and Serb background people living in Edmonton. I think it specifically referred to Edmontonians or Albertans. Live side by side, work side by side, no problem. And they were going back there and fucking killing each other.
Yeah,
it's just.
It's a similar pattern though. Like I had 2 roommates in Uppsala, and they were both from Lebanon. And one was a Shiite Muslim, and the other was a Maronite Christian. And they were the best of friends. They both acknowledged readily that were they back in Lebanon, they would be hard enemies. They would probably be trying to kill each other.
Yeah.
But because they lived in Sweden, it was a different dynamic.
Yeah.
They liked the same music. They spoke the same language. They ate the same foods. They were from the same cultural milieu, the same kind of identities, kind of thing.
Weird how that works, huh?
Yeah, and that and the other thing is yes, they were of different religious and non-compatible religious traditions. However, they were both monotheistic faiths. They were both Abrahamistic monotheistic faith in an overall
secular.
Thank you. Completely secular society in Sweden.
Yeah.
Where like the one Shiite guy even said that his teachers always said associate with Christians. If you're the only Muslim kid in your class, be friends with Christians, because they at least have a way. They have a way and a code, and they still believe in God. Like, don't be alone. Like, being a Muslim doesn't mean you can't have any friends.
Yeah.
You just target the friends who are the most like you.
That was interesting. When first time I went to visit my folks in Saudi, and they filled out a massive form for that, and asked me what religion I was, and I said atheist because I thought that would be the
appropriate thing to say.
Most appropriate. My parents found that out. They're like,
yeah.
I don't want to be saying that.
I once worked with an East Indian fella. He was Brahmin, and we were talking about that, and he said how India is a place of many faiths.
Yeah.
And he said nobody trusts the atheist.
Okay.
No one. In that, be a man, a Sikh, a Hindu, a Buddhist, a Jain, a Christian, whatever. At least I know his code. He has a belief in something.
He has a code higher than himself.
Well, he believes that he is accountable to something higher than himself. The atheist feels he's accountable.
Well, how many times have I touched on that in our conversation?
Well, it's like that line from The Big Lebowski I said once, right? Like where they're talking about nihilists and John Goodman's character. He's like, say what you will about National Socialism, but at least it's an ethos. Right?
A very extreme example, yeah.
At least it's an ethos. So.
Well, fucking, what was it? Bill Maher tried saying that right after 9/11. Something similar.
I do recall him saying that.
He was saying that I don't care what you say about these guys; they may be evil, but flying a plane into a high-rise building, that takes courage.
Yeah,
yeah.
You cannot doubt their dedication. Yes,
and
I remember that.
He got shut down. Like
he took a lot of fire.
That was a common, because Macaulay and I were talking about this all through the Guat, especially when we were in Iraq, right? Like Americans always, these fucking cowards, these guys are not fucking cowards.
No, they're not.
No. But ironically, not ironically, suicide operations were not an Islamic terror thing until the 1960s, and they got it from the fucking Japanese Red Army.
Oh, of course they did, and they were all working together at the time.
Yeah, when they were
PFLP, Bannerman.
Yeah, Battermind, Red Brigades, all those guys.
Yeah.
When they were all in
those were the big four.
Yeah, right. When they were all in either Lebanon or Syria training, or eventually I think they moved to Libya, but training. But yeah, it was the Japanese Red Army that introduced that to the PFLP and the PLO, and that's when suicide bombing started.
Yeah, but I mean, that was a cultural thing.
Yeah.
Right. Somehow along the way they managed to turn that into a religious thing.
Yeah, but what? It's not. It's
side,
just
right?
They make that the narrative, but it's not true.
The 40 virgins or whatever.
The fucking Japanese got us again.
North Japan comes up a lot.
Yeah. The only thing worse than white chicks, liberal white chicks, is communist Japanese.
Apparently.
I don't know. It's like I find when you look at the culture war, it's like all the big problematic people, the most annoying people in the culture war are liberal white chicks.
I need a lot more context to that statement to even begin to discuss.
I find it definitely some of the more hypocritical.
Yeah. Right.
And these are people who are coming from positions of tremendous privilege.
Well, absolutely. That's always been the case.
Yeah.
Right. You look at Patty Hearst. Right. She was a prime example of the SLA. That was just a bunch of rich kids. Same with the Bader Meinhof. Same with the Red Brigades.
And the Weather Underground.
They hardly ever come up. I mean, the SLA only comes up because of Patty Hearst, right? You know, like that's the only reason anyone knows.
Well, the reason they don't come up is because that kind of period of American history is kind of memory hold. But there were years in the 70s where there was a bombing every day in the United States.
Yeah.
Like a bomb went off every fucking day.
But there was always something else going on.
But it gets memory hold. People.
There was always something going on between the Arabs and the Israelis. You had an energy crisis.
But yeah, it's weird that period of American history is kind of memory hold. I was listening to somebody else talk about it earlier this week. I can't remember who it was, but it was just like, you realize because there's a book out called Days of Rage, and he talks about it. And I think he deals with like 74, 75, 76 or somewhere in that area.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it was crazy. People don't remember how crazy it was in the United States that time.
Yeah, but and then we were just talking about terrorism, right? So that was the heyday. Like 68 onwards.
Yeah.
That's when you start getting all the
into the early 80s,
and stuff like that. Right, yeah, and then after Entebbe, it kind of died down. It became onesie twosie shit. But after the Israelis pulled off Entebbe, it was like, okay, you weren't seeing a lot of plane hijacks like you used to.
Yeah.
Yes, that was the Israeli policy on no negotiation, and also when the SAS.
The Princess
raided the Iranian embassy.
Well, and GSG9 and in Mogadishu, and with SAS help as well.
Yeah.
Because the SAS invented the flashbang grenade, and that was the first time it was used, was in the Mogadishu raid with GSG9.
And that also forced a counter-revolution in terrorism. In that, in the 1970s, you committed a terrorist act so that you could get a seat at the table.
Yeah.
In the 1980s and 90s, you committed a terrorist act to blow up the table.
Yeah. Well, it's to get attention.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And retribution.
Yeah. It became almost a means in its own end. Like, you didn't bother taking hostages anymore.
Yeah.
Like, when was the last time someone took a hostage? Instead of taking a busload of people hostage, you just blow up the bus and kill them.
It's the two that come to mind are the Achille Lauro, or there was a TWA flight around the same time.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, those were both 80s.
Yeah.
I cannot find the notes that I wanted to use for the first half of this podcast.
You'll remember it.
Yeah, which is odd, because I was just reviewing them the other day.
Didn't delete them by accident? Did you check your trash?
I hope not. No, I have them copied into Word documents and put on this tablet.
I did that once. I was going for my MBA. I never got my MBA, but I did the first 4 courses. And for one of those courses, the strategic management course, the final essay I had to write, I pushed through it. I did like 36 hours straight doing this fucking thing, right?
Yeah.
And then I sent it to myself on my work email and opened it on my work email at work. And I told my boss, listen, I'm here if you need me, but otherwise don't pay me for fuck all because I'm just going to be finishing this off tonight. I opened it and I kept hitting save, kept hitting save.
Don't tell me.
I didn't hit save as.
I don't want you in this.
And I closed it and went looking for it, and I could, for the life of me, I couldn't find out where it was. I searched that whole fucking computer. I used the search function, and then I went through everything. And yeah, so I failed that course. The instructor hated me anyways.
That's tragic.
I was chuckling to myself when he was saying, "Well, yeah, back in the '70s, that it's funny how that the Weather Underground didn't get noticed. Yeah, probably because even though if there was a bombing every day, there was probably still more and gun deaths every day.
I think it was plenty noticed at the time, but as you say, it's been memory old.
Yeah.
It's not the sort of thing that, again, when you control all the megaphones, you don't want to talk about your own dirty laundry. You don't want to talk about your own imperfections.
Exactly.
If I'm a Montreal Canadiens fan,
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about the 4 and 5 in a row teams. I'm not going to talk about fucking last year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
No, I think you're right, actually. Yeah, the U.S. and they're not going to have given, because half the thing about it is marketing, right? It's gaining attention. That's what terrorist groups are all about. They're making a name for themselves.
Well, also, I mean,
so
if your sympathizers control the arts and the media cycle, you don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, but it's
like Rob Ayers is still on the speaking circuit.
Yeah, he is.
He was a member. He even did time.
Really?
Yeah, for killing somebody with a letter bomb.
Wow.
And he's still a tenured academic. Like the fact that a man like this gets hired at a university speaks volumes.
Yeah, but that can be said across the board. Really.
No,
I mean,
no.
Chesa Boudin, who just got recalled about 3 weeks ago as Chesa Boudin, he was a district attorney for San Francisco. He got recalled. He has 4 parents. Because his original parents, members of the Weather Underground, were put in prison.
Oh yeah, so he was adopted.
So he was adopted,
like fostered and adopted, yeah.
by Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn,
Oh,
who were the people who raised him.
oh fuck.
Like,
California seems to have a lot of recalls. You say I've heard.
Because
this is the third instance of recall I've heard in California.
Yeah.
In the last 2 years, I haven't heard recall California or anywhere else in the states.
Because
California has specific legislation.
Yeah, California has specific legislation. I remember on Kevin Williamson and Charlie Cook's podcast, they call it Mad Dogs in English, but Williamson said like maybe California doesn't have a functional Republican Party because it doesn't need one because it's got this easy recall and this easy ballot initiative thing.
Yeah,
so it's easy relative to the other states for private citizens to put stuff on the into legislation.
Other means to hold elected representatives accountable.
Yeah, so that
or to act as opposition.
Yeah. So So the politicians of California are certainly significantly to the left of the population of California, but the population is generally willing to indulge them until things get too shitty and things are starting to get really, really shitty.
And then they express themselves through recall initiatives, not so much through electoral politics.
Yeah, because Gavin Newsom barely survived his recall, but he did survive it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not just the politicians in California are more left than...
Oh, I think so, yeah.
But two of them, the interesting is...
At the federal level, you're still getting way more Democrats coming out of California, usually. Oh, yeah. As a rule.
Well, because the population's, like...
I would say California's more left.
California is, like, to a degree, kind of like Canada, right? Urban centers are left, rural centers are right. Sure. Right? Like, all the
North America.
All the counties...
That's all of North America.
All the counties of... Well, that's true, too. But all the counties north of San Francisco... There's like a popular separation movement to turn California into 3 states. Yeah, like in the San Bernardino Valley. Yeah, the northern part of basically like a coastal strip from San Francisco down to LA, but not including San Diego because San Diego is like the lone Republican urban Republican enclave. Really? Yeah, because San Diego's got more military bases than just about any other city in the United States.
That's probably got a bigger immigration problem too.
It does have a bigger immigration problem. But yeah, San Diego's got Camp Pendleton, Marine Corps Recruit Depot San Diego, Miramar Naval Air Station, Coronado. Gotcha. And
naval base too.
And San Diego.
And so that means it probably has a lot of people from outside California.
Exactly.
Yeah. We're not born and raised.
And they're military, so they're generally going to lean
military tends to slant right.
Yeah. So and then the northern counties of California, everything north of the Bay, is all fairly Republican, fairly conservative. Yeah. Right? Part of them were like, there was like, can we like separate and join Oregon? There was that movement as well, and then Oregon's gone pretty far left, so they're like, they're okay, you guys are good.
Now we want Idaho.
yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. Well, and actually, I think there's a similar separation movement in Oregon, and like the eastern counties of Oregon and Washington want to join Idaho.
They want to join Idaho.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the big population centers on the coast.
Yeah, concentrate.
Like in Washington, King County.
Yeah, King County, Seattle.
Seattle, they're hard. They're dystopian left.
Oh, yeah, Seattle's gone fucking batshit lunatic crazy.
But
like
Portland and Seattle,
yeah,
they're worse than California. They're nuts.
Oh yeah,
they are fucking insane.
And Seattle, I think, might be the worst of the two, but it's bad. Like,
oh yeah,
because I listened to like the Dark Horse with Brett Weinstein the other high. They live in Portland. I have an aunt and uncle live in Portland. And they're just
fuck, get out while you can.
Yeah,
it's insane.
Well, my aunt and uncle have been thinking about moving up here because my aunt's the Canadian. Right?
What does that say? It's like we got to go to Canada because it's not as left wing. What does that say?
Well, but they're talking about. I mean, the family's all up here. They're separated from the family as well. But their kids are both down there. But it's it's.
Oh, it's nuts. It's nuts. Some of the crazy things like you hear about coming out of that city, like wow. There was something I just heard about. Oh yeah, what was it? Lesbian bar opened in Portland. Oh, and then had to close. Is forced to close. Yeah, like it opened on Friday. By Monday, it was forced to close.
Yeah, no, it was. I listened. They did this on Blocked and Reported. Mm-hmm. And it was. Yeah, they opened. They wanted to open lesbian bars. Two lesbians from New York, who were like in Portland and like they don't have any good lesbian bars, and they remember all the great lesbian bars they had in New York. Evidently, so they wanted to open one, and opened. And they had their opening on a
big grand Friday night. Line up around the block to get in. Everything looked really promising,
and then by Sunday or Monday, the staff was meeting without the owners in another bar to like figure out how. And then there was like demands that the owners surrender the bar to the staff. To the work. Remember, they call themselves, they use Marxist language, so they call themselves the workers, not the employees.
Yeah, the workers. And like that there was not enough representation.
It was supposed to be a lesbian bar, and then
it just fissiled into identity politics of lesbians of color, lesbians who have partners who are of color.
Well, and then there wasn't enough trans or questioning or the other alphabet letters.
There was cultural appropriation on the art that was on the walls, and it just
this is what I find
went bananas.
Like the whole the feminist spectrum is all over the fucking place, and they're eating their own.
Yeah.
Like J.K. Rowling is getting fucked over because she's taking a certain position, and that's transphobia, and so that's the type of language we're using. Right? It's like all the nonsense that prevented the Republicans from winning the Civil War. It's all that fucking infighting.
And it's really gripped America. Like I don't think that has gripped the left anywhere outside of the United States. Like I'm not aware of the Australian left
it's
going hard into the gender. Like
I think some of them have tried, but I don't know if they're having as much luck.
I think we're seeing it across the woke movement to a certain extent.
To an extent,
British, right?
But
so
even in England,
it's an international conversation.
Yeah, you're right.
You got whoever the big names are, like even some of the originators, like Steinem and I can't remember the other names. Just some of them they're speaking out on the latest issues, and they're getting called out.
Totally.
But this is the originator of the movement,
because they're turfs.
It's gotten to the point.
Yeah.
It's gotten to the point where I can't help just thinking of Life of Brian and the PFJJFP fucking nonsense.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
That People's Front of Judea.
Yeah, the J and People's Front.
Yeah, fuck off.
That is one of the greatest skits of all time.
Or
Father the Gourd.
Every man or woman.
Why
always know about women? Why I want to be? You can't. I mean, they foresaw that whole conversation.
Yeah.
And they also foresaw it in life when they had what are you going to call the baby? Is it a boy or a girl?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's a little bit.
Put rolls on it yet? Yeah.
Holy fuck.
They did call it, eh?
Wow.
Did you fuckers have a time machine or what?
Yeah. And it's interesting because Cleese is out there calling out a lot.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
And I appreciate that about him. He's like, just like Jordan Peterson, he's the voice of reason.
I was having a conversation the other day about the role of grandmothers. that they are teachers. Traditional. The grandmother was a teacher, but only 20% of her time was teaching children. She was teaching mothers, right? Because there was a lot of knowledge that was held in that social structure. But now that you mentioned that Cleese was speaking out, this is a role maybe that seniors have that we're only really beginning to understand now. Seniors have an ability to speak out in a way that younger people can't. Are you going to threaten John Cleese's career?
No, you're not going to threaten John Cleese's career.
No.
Because you can't, and
you can't.
Right?
He's John Cleese. He's John Cleese.
If you never
he's retired.
He's made a career of responding to absurdity. Yeah. I mean, that is his.
If you look at the majority, the overwhelming majority of scientists and people involved in the hard sciences who are speaking out against global warming, they are overwhelmingly over the age of 60. You can't threaten those guys.
Yeah.
You can't blacklist him. I mean, you could try. He doesn't give a shit. He's already kind of retired anyway. He was only teaching maybe 2 classes a friggin' term anyway. He was already transitioning into retirement. His pension is set. No. So, yeah, go ahead.
But I think American politicians have screwed seniors in the United States because they have that, what's the term? Not clerisy, but the gerontocracy in the United States, right? Like, I was thinking about it. I was obsessing with the gerontocracy. I realized we don't have it in Canada, right?
No, we don't.
Like, Trudeau is, I think, a year too older than me.
You almost used my name for Trudeau's. You got me mixed up. You said Trent Trudeau.
No, I didn't.
Trent Trudeau.
That's what I just heard.
You heard wrong. I would never mix you up with Trudeau. Despite his recent haircut, I would never mix you up. Yeah.
Take that back.
But yeah, we don't have that gerontocracy problem. This is Trudeau and all his Confederates and
fairly young,
like Bill Blair is kind of like the odd man out, and he's not part of that like 80.
They are a very young movement.
Yeah. Well, but even the Conservative Party is very young, and the NDPs are pretty young.
And the NDP is pretty young.
Yeah, like Bill Blair, Elizabeth May, and they're like the senior citizens of the freaking Parliament, right?
But when I
think that's a wild concept.
When I think of the NDP caucus,
there's probably a couple of them missing. But
Charlie Angus, he's probably the road warrior there.
Oh yeah, easily.
But he's not really a leader. Yeah, federal.
But
he's not really in the inner circle. He's not in the leadership.
But in the States, you look like all the. I mean,
like McConnell.
McConnell's
Pelosi, Schumer.
Yeah, Pelosi is
all the leadership is old. The Senate is old. Period. I mean, like Rand Paul was and Mike Lee are like the youngest guys in the Senate. Kind of.
Who was the other woman who was running?
Dianne Feinstein is going insane.
Yeah.
Like, and she's still, she's 83 or 84, I think. Pelosi's 80. McConnell is still in his 70s.
Yeah. Who was the other one from the Senate who was running for? Who wanted to be the Democrat?
Warren. Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah, she's up there too.
She's in her 70s.
Right? Yeah, they're all up there.
This is it's a peculiar American phenomenon. And so people in the States, I think, because of these assholes, are sick of seniors, right?
How old is Biden? Is he 80?
No, he will be by the next election. He's 78. He's 78 this year, I think.
Trump is only a couple of years younger than he is.
Yeah. I think he was 4 years younger.
Yeah, so Trump, I think by 2024 will be 77, I think. Yeah.
Reagan was very old when he was...
No, Reagan wasn't nearly. Reagan was younger than Biden when he was...
Everybody was younger than Biden. No. But what I mean is Reagan was...
Reagan was younger...
70s
Reagan was...
When he was president.
When he was done, he was in his 60s when he was first elected.
Yeah, he did a full...
Yeah, I know. He was younger than Biden is now when he was done. Is what I was trying to get at.
Clinton was younger.
Yeah, Clinton was the third youngest, I think.
Clinton was almost like JFK coming in.
Yeah.
That same kind of...
Kennedy was actually, I think, a year younger or something.
Kennedy was really young. But he was only
Kennedy was only 40 when
he was in his 40s.
Yeah.
George Bush Sr.
Was in his 60s.
Yeah, he was older.
Yeah, he was old. He's serving.
But yeah, he's not. Yeah, exactly. But he's not like really old now.
Yeah.
Where
like Reagan was still in his 60s when he was elected to a second term. So.
To think of another era in American politics where so many of the power brokers were in their 70s.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, you talk about memory holes. There's going to be a ton. Are we recording this? We should be.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, cool.
This is going to clips bit.
I mean,
keep going.
Like you were saying, you know, the 70s was kind of because there was more going on globally in the U.S. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Right. You know, I think of the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
What do I think? I think FDR. I think Depression, and that was there was that, and from there I'm like something called the Teapot Dome scandal, which I kind of looked into.
Mm-hmm.
You know, who were the presidents in those days? Who knows, right? I think maybe
Hoover.
Harding, Hoover.
Yeah.
Maybe I think Harding was Teapot Dome, but I don't know, right? I'm betting back then there were a lot of older guys.
Maybe.
Right.
Maybe.
But across the board.
Although the 30s was a very dynamic time in global politics. There was the Holodomor in the Soviet Union. There was almost constant civil war in Eastern Europe, in what is now the Baltics and Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia. Germany was in...
Oh, Germany was messed up.
Crazy, constant civil war.
The thing that actually blows my mind when I go back to it is
the Italians,
right? But the Italians were actually stable by the 30s because Mussolini got in 22. So when everyone else was celebrating in this orgy
of unrest,
of pleasure after the First World War, the fascists were in play within 4 years.
Spain, how can we forget?
Well, yeah,
turmoil.
No, I know.
Spain in the 1930s.
Well,
he's not wearing his T-shirt today. That's why.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, for some reason, it was time for.
I mean, if anything, North America. Oh Christ! Look at the crazy changes in Western Canada in the 1930s. The birth of the CCF and the social credit, the social gospel.
Yeah.
Oh my God! America was downright boring in the 1930s. It was a placid backwater. It's where you went to calm down.
Yeah.
Man. I mean, everywhere else was, it was going on.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that was bound to happen.
Boring. Yeah.
But and I heard it characterized once as, if you look at the popular gangsters in the 20s, they were Capone,
Machine Gun Kelly.
They were the gangs, the literal gangs.
They were. The birth of the mafiosi crime family.
Right, exactly. They were literally gangsters, gangs, and it was all about the sin elements, the liquor, the drugs, the prostitution,
racketeering,
the gambling, all that shit. Right?
Yeah.
Once the 30s came around, who do you got now? You got Bonnie and Clyde. You've got
the bank robbers.
You've got
Dillinger.
Yeah. Right? Now these are becoming the folk heroes. Yeah. Right? Because they're lone wolves, they're out there, they're fighting the man, they're robbing the banks. Yeah. Right? Different thing altogether, right? So it's and the 30s became very political.
To take it back to the previous century, the James Gang was the same thing. They were riding against the banks, riding against the railroads, right? The James Gang's first thing was the railroads.
James Barker Gang, they were a and they were folk heroes because they were lashing out against the rich industrialist North, or that was the perception.
Because I think
they were ex-Confederates.
Yes, they were ex-Confederates, and then I think what ended up it was the railroad was crossing the James family's land, and it was
something like that,
and so their land was taken under.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and so their first dispute was with railroads.
Yeah,
and so under what the hell is the term when the U.S. government sees land?
Eminent domain.
That's the one. Yeah. So the land was taken under eminent domain for the railroad right away, and then that was.
I just figured that these guys were. I just figured that they were traumatized by PTSD and couldn't get jobs.
Well, part of it too, but
they had.
It is possible that they were taking time bombs ready to go, and it was just getting some land taken away.
Their formative years of their late adolescence, instead of learning useful skills in a civilized world, they learned soldiering.
Yep.
And then in 1865 rolled around. What can they do?
Yeah.
They can't be blacksmiths. They can't be farmers. They can't be ranchers. They can't be millwrights. They can't be cartwrights. They don't know how to do any of these things.
Yeah.
They know the gun.
They were the Peaky Blinders, the American Midwest of the
Yes.
19th century.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Gentlemen, I need to go to the toilet.
Sure thing.
And I am going to tap into the refreshment.
There you go.
So when was Northfield, Minnesota?
What, you didn't say anything about pulling out a pack of tabs.
Well, I'm going to do that too.
Why the fuck